Hey guys, welcome back to another weekend video. So today we are going to be repairing a microscope. Basically, we're going to be also going over the main faults that you can get in the microscope, which is sometimes just the mechanism for the
focus.
Yeah, for the focus will slip off its rail, so you won't be able to change your focus. And so we're going to be taking apart, fixing, and putting back together this microscope.
So this is a National Optical 131. It's one of the most common home microscopes and home and student microscopes that you can find. So before we get started talking about how to fix it, we should probably talk a little bit about how microscopes work in general. So these down here are your objective lenses, okay, and these are what actually gather the light into the microscope, okay. And so this one has 3 objectives. The higher they are, the less magnification they have. So this one is a 4x objective. The next one is 10x, and the last one is 40x. Now, all of them come, so the light comes through the objective up through here and is reflected into your eyepiece. And this has a 10x eyepiece, so that means you have 10 times magnification here and between 4 and 40 down here. So that'll give you between total 40 and 400 times magnification. Now, the thing to keep in mind, sometimes people increase magnification by having higher magnification eyepieces. That does make the picture bigger, but it doesn't increase any detail. It's like if you have a low quality image and you blow it up, it doesn't give you more detail. If the detail wasn't already in the photo, making it bigger doesn't add detail, it just makes it easier to see. So all of the detail comes from the objective lenses. And so now the other thing, so then you have your light. And because in order to get magnification, you have to have more light coming through, and so this gathers all the light together, and so you have to have light shining through it. But the other thing is that when things get closer, it's harder and harder to focus it properly. So so at normal vision, things that are if I were to focus on this microscope, the things back here are out of focus. Okay, or if I focus back here, the microscope's out of focus. But when I look at the microscope, even though it's several inches, or it's about 1.5 inches thick, the whole thing, I can see the whole thing in focus. When things get bigger, the amount of things that are in focus goes down. So you have to so microscopes have very fine controls over the focus. And that's what these knobs do. This is the coarse focus that kind of gets it in the general ballpark, and this is the fine focus. And that is what gives you very fine detail. And so I usually find that there's usually one of 2 things wrong with a microscope when I get them. Because I get these from auctions and stuff where schools think that they're broken. Sometimes they are, but sometimes the most likely thing, if the stage moves up and down when you turn the knobs, there is a little stopper right here, and the goal of this stopper, maybe you want to move the camera closer a little bit. This screw right here, what that does is that prevents you from crashing the stage into your objectives, because your objectives are the most sensitive part of the whole microscope. So if you crash your stage into the objective, it can scratch your objective, and then you have to replace them. So this prevents you from moving the stage up too high, but this is settable. You can screw it back and forth to adjust what the maximum setting is. And sometimes as time goes on, these things go further and further in, and so eventually you get it to where you can focus your microscope, but it won't go all the way in focus. And all you need to do to fix that is just unscrew this a little bit. Usually you have to use pliers to do that, because it's hard to twist with your fingers. But in this case, if I pull the coarse focus, the stage does nothing. Usually if you move the coarse focus, you can see the stage moving up and down. In this case, that's not happening. So we're going to have to take this thing apart. We may or may not be able to fix it, but we can at least give it the old college try. So, the first thing that we're going to do, most of the things that you can do are hidden. Well, so we can take off the stage, and that'll give us access to some things. And we can take off the base, and that'll give us access to other things. So let's start with the base. So Nate, do you want to do the honors of unscrewing the base? Actually, that's probably something we can both do. So we'll get that one. We'll get this one. So most student microscopes, even if they aren't made by National Optical, are put together in this way. Some of the more advanced ones have different construction, but most student microscopes, they all have the same basic construction. I've done Fisher microscopes that are exactly alike. They might look a little different, they might have slightly different shapes to things, but ultimately, you have the same idea in their stage and focusing mechanisms and stuff like that. The other hard part is remembering where everything goes together after you take it all apart. Alright, so we've got all the screws off. So now we can pull the base plate off. And you can see that the mechanism in here is actually very simple. All this is here's the wire coming in from the wall. And that green wire is the ground wire, and it just gets grounded to the base. And then these go through the switch. That's all that is. That's the switch on the other side. You can see that's the on-off switch. All right.
Okay.
And then after they go to the on-off switch, it goes to the light in here. And so that's all that is. It's just an on-off switch for the light. It's very simple. The light itself goes through this guy, and this guy does a few different things. It focuses the light upward, but it also obscures the light bulb itself, because otherwise, without this guy, you can actually physically see the light bulb in your slide. So this guy both kind of fuzzes out the physical light bulb itself. Nate, you want to show us the light bulb? So that's what the light bulb looks like. And if you didn't have this guy, you'd actually physically see that on your slide. And this also projects it upward. And then this little piece right here is the condenser, which then focuses it further onto your slide. But that's not really what we're focusing on right now. We're focusing right now on the focus. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the arm from the base. And there are 4 screws right in there that, see if I can do this way. I need a bigger screwdriver for that one. Let's see here. Too tight. How's it going, Nate? Are you getting it?
This will go faster if I go grab a second.
Actually,
It'll just take a second.
No, I've got an idea. I'm going to start all these, and then once I start them, I can use the other screwdriver. They're just a little too tight for that little screwdriver. That one on the top might be too strong for all of these. Let's see. Okay, Nate, you do that. You do that one, and I'll do the one down here. And you don't have to worry. It's not gonna. The base isn't gonna just fall off because there's 2 little dowels that hold it in as well. once you get the screws off, you still have to give it a little nice pull. There you go. Okay, let me work on this last one. Why don't you put those in our... We have a little bucket that we're putting all of our screws in, because otherwise we'd lose them all. It's actually one of my biggest problems when taking things apart.
We'll lose all the pieces.
Yep, there actually was once a movie called Doc Hollywood, and I don't remember much about the movie itself, but one of my favorite parts, the background of the movie was this guy got stuck. He was heading to Hollywood and got stuck in a small town because his car broke down. And at the end of it, they finally get his car fixed, and he goes to shake the guy's hand who put his car together, and instead of shaking his hand, the guy gave him a box. Hey, Nate, you need to put that up a little bit more. There you go. Gave him a box, and he's like, "What's this box?" He's like, anytime I put something back together, I always have pieces left over." And so those are the pieces left over when we put this car back together. I always thought that was amusing. So now we have these screws off. We can just yank it off, and you can see those little dowels, kind of what's holding that in here, and it goes into those little holes there. So it just attaches like that. So now what we need to do, so you've got the two focusing mechanisms in there. What I'm going to do next, I'm going to take the stage off, and that'll allow us to see inside. Now the stage is held on with hex screws. So
by the way, if you want to see more videos by us, leave a like, comment, subscribe, slap the bell if you want to see more tutorials and vlogs.
that one looks like it's a little stripped out, so it might be harder to get just the right size to do it. Could be a problem. The bane of my existence is stripped out screws. Sure, someone has invented something that causes stripped out screws to be easier to mess with, but I don't know what it is. What do you think, Nate? Do you have an idea?
On what?
What to do with these stripped out screws? I'm going through your little micro kit and trying to find one that will that might work. Gotta find one that sticks tight enough to turn.
It looks like you're making progress. By the way, the screwdrivers we're using is just a good old-fashioned, decent-sized Phillips screwdriver. And the Hyper Tough 22-piece precision set.
Where'd you get that?
I actually got it from Billy and Stasha for Christmas.
Ooh.
I think it was Billy and Stasha. Could have been someone else.
Alright, so now we got the stage coming off. Alright, so there's the stage with the condenser in it. Unfortunately, the screwdriver kind of got stuck inside the screw. We'll worry about that later. So now, that gives us access to the focusing mechanism. So now we've got screws on the top. So we've got screws up here, and we've got screws on the side here. So go after those. Where's the regular one? There we go. Alright, and there is our focusing mechanism.
Yeah, so, slight problem. It doesn't look like this is ever going to come out. So.
Well, we'll take care of that later. There is the focusing mechanism. So that little guy right there kind of maintains pressure. I don't know if that guy comes out or yeah. So he can just come out. Put him in the box. So anyway, both of these are on gears. There's a gear here and a gear here that control the stage going up and down. So now we'll take off this top bar. Now, that side of the focusing mechanism is exposed. So you can also see the bottom. And now, there we go. I can pull this out. You can see the fine focus right there. And what happens is that on the fine focus, I don't know how easy that is to see, there's a little lever in there, and as you move the fine focus, that moves that little lever back and forth. And you might wonder what moving a lever back and forth does it to focus the stage this way. You see on the other side of it, there's a little tiny platform. And moving this lever moves that platform just a little tiny bit. So that moving this back and forth will change the distance up there a little tiny bit. So anyway, so you can get, sometimes we use mechanisms to amplify things and make things bigger, but in this case we're using mechanisms to decrease the effect of actions. So Let's see here. See if we can get this bottom part off. There it goes. So now we have it removed. Now notice that line of stair-steppy things. All right, and so what happens with the focus mechanism is that here, if you can see, there's a little groove here, and moving the focusing mechanism moves the grooves, and that will move this up and down. And usually what happens if there's a problem, it just means that the focusing mechanism has gotten off track. So what we have to do is we have to kind of push it back on so that it's back on track. So we'll try to do that. And so basically I'm pushing it back up so it's hitting the tracks, and then I'm going to push it while I focus it. There we go. So now it's back on track, and now it'll move up and down. I don't know if you can see that. It will move up and down as I turn the knob. I'll make sure both sides work. Yep. And so all that was is that it got off track. And so now that it's back on track, it should work. So now we just put it back together. So let's see here. We have the little springy guy. Put the springy guy back into the center hole there. It's hard to see here, but there's a hole. And then we'll put the lid back on. That's how it goes. And I don't remember which screw is which, so we'll just pick whichever screws. What did you got there, Nate?
A little bit of extra light so we can show inside stuff.
Well, I'm putting it back together, so that still might help, but.
Just hope it's big enough.
There we go. I always screw these in just a little bit less than the factory does, just because I know that if it goes wrong once, then it's better to have it available and open so that I can fix it if it goes wrong again. So here's my stopper mechanism. I'll stick that guy back on.
Oh, wait a second. Let me just clip it on.
My precision with, here, use the precision screwdriver. It is better at precise work. Alright, so now those pieces are back on. So now we put the stage back on. And it connects to these holes here. Now these are the stage clips, and I actually hate stage clips, so I always turn them backwards because I'd rather not use them. I like mechanical stages if I have them, but if I don't, I'd rather just have nothing at all.
extension cords.
Yellow and black.
They have 4 ports in them.
I don't know where it is. What do you need? Oh, you want to plug this in?
Yeah, that won't reach. Also, this light won't reach.
Oh, we'll just move.
Okay. We'll get the second table. Okay, this may take me a minute.
All right.
Because I'm not as good with moving giant white tables as you willing to do.
All right, so that puts the stage back on. Now we need to reattach it to the base. So you get the dowels lined up. So you get the dowels lined up with the holes in the middle. And that, once those go on, then we can screw in the screws in here. I think that's these guys. So what are you doing with that?
So that we can move it. I'm moving it over there.
Well, we could just move the microscope over there. That's right. And so pretty much once you have one screw in here, then it's pretty solid. And the others are just extra. As I said, I don't like to tighten these factory tight, because someday in the future I'm going to probably want to get at this again. And it's nice to not have to King Kong these. And what I find sad, like I've bought these microscopes before, like super cheap from schools, who... You know, it's really sad when it's just this little thing that's screwed in too tight. But even with the focusing mechanism, it takes, you know, these things cost about $250 each. And all it takes usually is just disassembling them and reassembling them to get that to work again.
And we're actually pretty slow at this.
Yeah, we're pretty slow. You know, I only do this every... year or so I forget half the things between each one.
So thankfully, for review and practice, and because I've never done this before, we took apart and failed to fix another microscope, but now we at least have a decent idea of how it all works. Otherwise, we would probably not even finish till the 45-minute mark. But it looks like we're going to finish around the 30 or 40-minute mark. About 30 or 35-minute mark. So this is actually making pretty good time.
Basically just want to screw it in tight enough so it doesn't shake around. Yep. So now we've got that tight. See, it doesn't shake around on us. So now we just need to put the base plate back on.
Okay, and let me get these base plate screws. I think these are the base plate screws for this one.
Yep.
We're sharing our our parts bin with the parts left from the other microscope, which we'll show you in a minute.
Yeah, we did it. We tried this earlier on a different, slightly different model microscope, and it was not. We may just need to use some more force. Maybe we'll take a look at that in a second. The other one that we tried it on only had a coarse focus. It did not have a fine focus. So it's constructed slightly differently. The ones without a fine focus are easier for little kids because having more than one focus it's more things for them to think about and to process. And so if you just have one knob,
okay,
it's a lot easier for kids.
This microscope does not have the rail as its problem. I can clearly see that it looks like it's entirely attached.
Well, it might be. Sometimes what happens is the rail will be offset, like it be turned a little bit, and so. So once we get the base plate on, we will be pretty much done, and we can turn this guy on and look at something in the microscope. So that'll be hard to put on the video. So Nate, why don't you go grab the one that we started on. You can just grab the, don't worry about the stage. Leave the stage there. Leave the stage there.
Okay.
Just leave that there. Just that part. So this is the one that we were looking at earlier. And so having trouble with this because it's actually, you can't see it very well, but it's still attached in there. And I tried muscling it off, but it doesn't work because it's actually, it is in fact still attached. Maybe, Nate, can you try rotating it? I think it's down on this side while I push it. Try it the other way. Try it the other way.
You getting any movement?
Nope, no movement. I don't think. I don't feel any.
Okay, so it feels like this microscope is done for.
Yeah, we have to think a little bit more about how we might fix this one. But this one, it had just simply slipped off the rail. So all we had to do is pull it all the way off and put it all the way back on, and it was fine.
Okay, so what slide are we going to use to test this?
All of my good slides I think are back in my storage unit, but I have some that I put together earlier that are over there in a little slide box. There's a blue slide box, and those aren't very good slides because they're homemade, and homemade slides only last hours to weeks depending on what it's of and how it's prepared. Someday I'll do a video on slide making, because actually getting a slide to last a long time is a really, really hard process.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay.
Let's see here. And now we've got that all the way put on. Our microscope is back in working order. See,
As far as we know.
That part works. So goes up and down. So do one that has good color on it. try that one or that one. That way we'll be able to see
Okay,
it
what's
for
this
sure.
one?
I don't know what it's of, but we can at least see that you can see a bluish color on it, so there's something in there that we can see. So what we'll do, move that stuff over, pull the power cord up.
Okay. Okay, I gotta back this up a bit.
So plug it in, the light comes on, and I will take a look through here.
One tip, try not to bump the glass.
Okay, our stop is to, I've actually got a couple problems in here. One of which is that this stop is too low. So I'll get my pliers out and loosen that a little bit.
And the drum roll for repairing.
Little bit further. And you actually need to have this a little bit looser than you might think, because you want to get it all the way in, and then we need that guy needs to be, there we go. There we go. Probably still could use a little bit of loosening. You want to be able to pull it at least a little bit out of focus going up. I actually have no idea what this is of, because I think the organism has essentially melted since we last looked at it.
So yeah, these don't last long, but they're cool.
Yeah.
They're cheap, but they don't last long.
They're easy to make. There you go. And then at the highest, now in theory, these are supposed to all be focused within a half a turn of the fine focus knob. But I have found that that is only true with the most expensive microscopes. The rest of them are not that well tuned. So, anyway, but we've got the focus knob adjusted, and the microscope works. So you can see it for yourself, Nate. So.
Well, it certainly works.
All right.
Okay, so thank you for watching. Leave a like, comment, subscribe for more video tutorials and logs. Okay.
Thank you very much.